Hey, what's going on, guys? I am back. I'm just connecting my iPad screen right now. There we go. So we're going to be finishing up lesson 7. I know I was just on like an hour or two ago, so some of you guys were here. If you were, hi again. If you were not, welcome back. Hi, Tabitha. So I only plan on doing 2 questions with you guys today, and that's it. Because everything that we're going to be doing is almost identical to what we did on the front page of lesson 7. So if you guys were to scroll all the way down, these were all the notes. I'm going slow in case if you're going to be watching the playback and you weren't here for yesterday's lesson, you could just click on this one and you'll be able to scroll down and see what we did. If you want to see the step-by-step we did yesterday, then obviously make sure you watch that video. Oh, you got an ad up right now? Come on. I'll wait a second. Of course you're getting an ad. That's the one downfall by Twitch because, I got to get paid. All that advertising money. I think I get for every 1,000 views, I make like 10 cents or something like that. It's something dumb. So, again, I want you guys to go down to the second page. I'm going to pick 2 questions that are on this page. Okay? So I'm going to only do 2 because it's the same exact thing as yesterday. I just have to show you guys what to do with subtraction. So I'm going to start right off with the first one. I'm going to start with letter... do I want to start with A? No, I'm going to start with B. I'm going to start with B because B is going to be more in line with what we did yesterday. Part A is like too easy compared to what's going to be shown on the homework, so I'd rather do the harder ones with you guys. So I'm going to go over to 4B first. So I'm zooming in over there. So it says that we have those 2 fractions. Just like yesterday, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we have an LCD. You have to have a common denominator in order to combine fractions, whether it's adding or subtracting. So in order to get there, we said yesterday that we can't find an LCD unless the denominators are factored first. So I'm going to look at these 2 fractions. The numerators right now are going to stay the same. But what we're going to do is just factor the bottoms. So that 4x squared minus 1, this right here can be factored using dots. So I could split this up as 2x plus 1 and 2x minus 1. So that's going to be your first denominator. And then we got to do the second denominator, and it looks like we could factor 10x plus 5 using GCF. So I'm going to pull out a 5, and I'm going to be left with 2x plus 1. Now, when you guys go to find an LCD, what you have to make sure you do is make the denominators the same. So the first thing that I will always tell you guys to do when you're looking for an LCD is find what you already have in common. Right now, we already have a 2x plus 1 in the denominators. So we know that a 2x plus 1 needs to be part of our LCD because they already match. Now we just have to find everything else that we need in the denominator to make it an LCD. So in the left fraction, we have a 2x minus 1. So that means in our LCD, we have to have a 2x minus 1. As far as the second fraction goes, we have that 5. So our LCD has to have a 5 in it as well. I always like putting the whole numbers as a coefficient out front. So when we go to rewrite these fractions, we have to have those as our denominators. So I have to have a 5, a 2x plus 1, and a 2x minus 1 as the denominators in both fractions. Well, now that I got those denominators in there, I just have to make sure whatever I multiplied to the bottom, I'm multiplying to the top. So if you look at this first one, the part that was missing from this denominator was the 5. So I have to make sure that I'm multiplying this 5 not only to the bottom, but I am also multiplying it to the top. So I have to distribute that 5 into the x and to that -3. So I'm going to have a 5x minus 15. And now when I go to do the second fraction, I'm going to have, it looks like I have the 5 and the 2x plus 1. So this one over here was missing a 2x minus 1. So whatever we do to the bottom, we got to do to the top. And again, we're going to distribute this. This is where you have to, actually, you know what? I'm not going to show in this step. So we're going to distribute that too, and we're going to have 4x minus 2. So this is the one thing that is going to be different from yesterday. Everything we've done so far was exactly the same. This next step is the one new thing. So what you guys have to do is make sure you recognize that in the middle of these two fractions that we have down here, oops, I want to try to pick a color that I haven't used. I'll just go to blue. This is subtraction. That subtraction is going to both numbers. So not only are we subtracting the 4x, but we're also subtracting the -2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 5x minus 4x. So I'm taking this 5x, I'm going to combine like terms. 5x minus 4x is really just going to give us x. Now I'm looking at this -15. This is saying -15 minus -2. So we have to remember, if you have two negatives next to each other, it's really going to turn into addition. So this part right here is really saying -15 plus 2. Well, if you do -15 plus 2, that's going to give you a -13. All over 5 times 2x plus 1 times 2x minus 1. Because what we said yesterday is once we have the common denominators, you keep the common denominator and you only combine the tops. Okay. So I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to see if anybody has a question in chat, because then you guys can just ask that now. If you guys feel comfortable with that, the only thing I would ask you guys to do is make sure that both top and bottom are factored, because sometimes you can cancel out some more stuff like we did yesterday with the addition problem. But it's looking like in this one, I don't think that we can factor anything, because we have x minus 13 and that can't be factored. And the bottom is already factored out. So technically, that would be our final answer. Does anybody have any questions with that? Keep leaning forward. I'm going to move my mic up a little bit so I don't have to keep leaning. We feeling Gucci? Okay. Told you guys I'm only going to do 2 questions because I'm hoping you guys are going to recognize that everything's the same, but that little negative that we just did right here, this is going to be the only new part of today. So I'm going to try to keep doing this with all of our lessons. I'm going to give you like the first part at one point or on one day, and then I'll give you the second part of the lesson the next day. All right. I am going to go down to part D. So if you guys look at part D, same exact rule. Some of you guys can jump ahead of me and then you could just go back and check to see if all your steps are correct. But I'm just going to walk it through just like I did part B. So what we're going to do is factor those denominators once again. So the tops are going to stay the same. I have x minus 2 on the top. I have 8 on the top. I'm going to put in my little subtraction sign. Would you get points off if you multiply through on the bottom? No, you wouldn't lose points off. If you want to distribute it all, you can. Sometimes they will on the Regents exam. Sometimes they'll just leave it like that and you'll be okay. If we go to factor this, it looks like the bottom, if I have x squared plus 5x plus 4, I can split that up into two bubbles. And it looks like I'm going to have an x plus 4 and an x plus 1. In the second one, again, I can split it up into two bubbles. And it looks like I'm going to have an x plus 8 and an x plus 4. So just like the last one, I'm just looking for an LCD. And we already have something in common. You're not always going to have something in common, but normally you will. So in this case, we have x plus 4 already in common, so we know that x plus 4 has to be one of the parentheses that is going to be in our LCD. From here, it might be pretty easy for you guys to see that, hey, look, this has an x plus 1, this one has an x plus 8, so that has to be the other two bubbles. So really, that's all we have to add in here. The LCD is going to be that x plus 1 and x plus 8. It doesn't matter what order you put it in. What do you do if you don't have one in common? If you don't have one in common, Liv, you just write down everything that you have. And you know what? The very last one, I'll do the starting steps for the last one to show you exactly that. So now that we have those three, I'm just going to have to add that in. I know that this bottom is missing the x plus 1, so whatever I do to the bottom, I got to do to the top. The first fraction is missing the x plus 8, so whatever I do to the bottom, I got to do to the top. Just make sure you're distributing your tops together. So if you guys look at the first one, we got to do x plus 8 times x minus 2. You have to do double distribution. So I'm not going to show all the arrows and go through, or box method or whatever you guys like to do. I'm just going to write out what that answer is. And if you're having trouble with it, just make sure to ask me in email or remind or whatever. So if I double distribute the top in the first fraction, I'm going to have x squared minus 2x plus 8x minus 16 all over. And I got those three bubbles now. I have x plus 8, I have x plus 4, and I have x plus 1. All right, so we got the first fraction. Now I have to subtract the second fraction, and I'm going to distribute that 8 into the x plus 1, so it should be minus 8x plus 8 all over. And again, I'm not going to write it all. We're doing it on the iPad. I can do a little copy and paste. So it's all over that denominator again. Now that we have common denominators, we can just combine like terms on the top. Hey, you did make it back. What's going on, Hunter? So if you guys take a look at the combining like terms, we have an x squared, but, oh no, my pen's dying again. Let me charge it up for a second. So now that we have that x squared, that x squared can't be combined with anything, so we can just rewrite it as x squared. I have multiple x's in this case, so you got to be careful when you're doing this. We have negative 2x, we have a positive 8x, but we have to remember, because it is subtraction, this little subtraction sign over here, that's being distributed to both numbers. So it's not a positive 8x, it's really a negative 8x. So this question is telling us that we have to do a negative 2 plus an 8 minus an 8. Well, the positive 8 and the negative 8 is really just going to cancel out. So we're just going to be left with that negative 2x. Now we just have to do the last part. Well, the last part is going to be that negative 16 and that 8. But remember, the negative is being distributed. So it's not really a positive 8. It's really becoming a negative 8. So that minus is being distributed in. So if you do negative 16 minus 8, that's going to give us a negative 24. All right, let's see here. Is my pen going to start working again? Come on, pen. There it goes. Now, your denominator, because they were common denominators, again, we still have the same denominator on the bottom. So the last thing that you guys have to do is just make sure that everything's factored. Ella, you can combine them, but what you'll notice will happen is when you do negative 2 plus this 8, that will give you positive 6x. And then you have to take that positive 6x and you have to subtract this 8x, and it's just going to give you this negative 2 anyways. I just did it all in one step rather than doing it in 2 separate steps. So now if we look down here, I can actually factor that top. If I factor the top, I will have 2 bubbles. And it looks like it's going to be an x minus 6 and an x plus 4. The bottom, still the same, so I'm just going to paste it again. And now you just have to make sure that fraction's completely reduced, and hopefully you guys are seeing there is something that you can cancel out, and it is going to be those x plus 4s. So the x plus 4s are gone, and we're really just left with x minus 6 all over x plus 8 times x plus 1. So there's a lot of steps going on here. So I'm zooming out just in case if anybody's coming in late, you could see all the process that we just went through. I'm hoping that you guys are seeing that it's all the math that we've been doing this year. It's a lot of factoring. We're going to do some LCDs that you guys have done in the past, and we're just kind of putting it all together. So if anything, the work may be a little tedious because we're rewriting that denominator over and over and over, because in that last step, you guys should see that it's going to cancel out. Thank you, NW Radio. Not sure who you are in chat, but no, thank you. I do what I can. I do what I can. Okay. So I'm going to go back. Olivia had one question. She said, hey, what happens if we don't have any denominators that match? So I'll talk about part E because, and I'm not going to solve the entire part E. I just want to show you guys the very first step, finding the LCD, and then I'll sign off for today. So jump over to part E, and I just want to show that first step. Actually, before I start going any further, did anybody have questions on part D? Because if nobody has questions on part D, I'll just move forward. I know I keep saying it over and over. I know there's a slight delay, so I try to pause a little bit, and that's why you'll start hearing me talk a little bit more, just in case if somebody's trying to type a question in. I know some of you guys are texting on your phones too, so it might take you a little bit to text in your question. Hopefully you guys are all right. So I'm going to go over to part E then. I'm going to zoom in on that. If I need to go back to it, I'll go back to it after I do this LCD portion. So again, we have to find an LCD. Now, just like every problem that we've been doing so far, some of the denominators are going to have more than one term. So if you look at this first fraction, the 1 over x minus 1, that x minus 1 are not two separate things. They're like together. So even though we're not showing it, this x minus 1 is actually in parentheses. It's kind of like how we did, if I zoom back over on part D. If you look at that x plus 8 and that x plus 1 that's on the bottom down here, those are in parentheses because the x and 8 belong together. This x and minus 6, they belong together. Even notice in the previous step, the x minus 6 was in parentheses. But then I took the parentheses away when I went and wrote down the final answer. That's what's happening over here in part E. Though there was no parentheses there, they're technically in parentheses because it's all part of the same denominator. So right now, when I say to find an LCD for part E, those x and minus 1 are together. We can't separate them. So we're not allowed to say x is what's in common because they're separate. So in this case, then this is to answer Olivia's question that she asked earlier. What do you do if you don't have one in common? In this case, we don't have anything in common. So when we go to write down the LCD, what we're going to do is we're just going to write down both of the denominators. And you can put the x, that's single x at the end. I just like putting the single numbers or letters at the beginning. So I'm hoping you guys are recognizing that x minus 1 was the first denominator and x was the second denominator. So if you don't find one that's the same, that just means that all of them will be your LCD. Okay? And then the next step is still exactly the same. I have to make sure that I get that same denominator. So the first fraction is missing an x. So whatever I do to the bottom, I got to do to the top. The second fraction is missing the x minus 1. So whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. And then I'm just distributing through just like I did in the previous two problems with you guys. So I'm not going to finish up with that one because I can already see that this video is up to 25 minutes. And like I said, I don't want to upload really long videos for you guys. So I'll stop right there. I'll give you guys a chance to ask any questions if you have them. If not, I'm just going to end it right there. I will say that I know a handful of you guys came in during my office hour time, which was at 1 o'clock. The people that were there, we tried to set up this new app that's called Zoom. It's not on your iPads yet. So if you are going to participate in Zoom, it's going to be something that you can download to your phone for right now. And the link, I sent out the link in Remind to all the students. So again, if you're not on Remind, send me an email so I can get you that code and get you set up. But Zoom is more or less just going to be something where we can talk about, we can actually like go over homework and questions, but it's more live and it's more direct because not only are you going to see my webcam, but I can see you guys asking me the questions instantly. And you don't have to show the video if you don't want to. So you can just put voice on. So if you want to ask a question, like I'm going to pick on Cassidy because she wanted me to talk about Zoom. Maybe Cassidy got on and she like just didn't feel like showering that day. So she might just look disgusting. She doesn't want to show her face on webcam. So maybe she just wants to do voice chat. And that's fine. Okay? For Maggie, are you talking about for homework number 7? If I didn't, I will add it as soon as I'm done with this stream so you guys can turn it in if you've completed it. Okay. All right. Anybody else have questions? Did I answer your question, Cassidy? I mean, does that help? I'll talk a little bit more about Zoom. Again, if you guys want to show up to my office hour tomorrow, it will be on Twitch, and I can talk more about Zoom there. I can answer any other questions you guys may have on homework number 7. I know I did a couple today. You guys can go back and watch the most recent broadcasts. No, Cassidy, everything we're going to do is still on Twitch. Every single lesson will be on Twitch. And the reason why is Zoom. Once we start getting all the cameras up and everybody's faces and everybody asking questions, it's going to become too overwhelming and too distracting. I think if we continue doing it on Twitch, it'll be kind of nice and calm. Your other classes will probably start using Zoom. I might be jumping the gun trying to get you guys set up and everything, but it's just something. I know Mr. B messaged me the other day specifically asking me to use Zoom for office hours. So he said once it's set up on your iPads, that's what he's going to prefer. He said everything else that we're doing is completely fine though. I mean, unless are you guys to the point where you guys think this Twitch stream that I'm doing isn't working out? Because really, I'm doing what you guys need. So if you guys feel that me doing this lesson on Twitch is you're not getting enough out of it, just let me know. You don't have to type it in chat because I know some of you guys feel pretty good with it. Some of you guys may not. So the Zoom is just an alternative option where you guys can show up during the office hours. You can ask me questions directly and I can help you guys out. I really just like Twitch because you guys can go back and rewatch the videos. I can still talk to you guys directly if you guys have questions. So, I mean, I'm going to continue doing this. I mean, this was my game plan for the end of the school year. At the end of the school year, when we were going to do Regents Review, I was going to put this up and we were just going to do Regents Review on here. Unfortunately, the way the world is right now, I got stuck doing it a lot sooner than I wanted to. Okay. Well, I'm going to end it there. So I hope you guys have an awesome evening. Again, if you got questions, don't be afraid to email. I actually got so many emails yesterday that my mailbox was full. So I'm actually deleting a bunch of stuff here and there to make sure that I can get all the new ones and connect with you guys. So awesome. You guys have a great evening. Miss y'all. See you soon.